Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming New York Times and Wall Street Journal best-selling author, Mr. Weldon Long.
Good morning and congratulations. You know, I was first contacted by Marie Hayden about coming down and speaking with you here at the school today. And when she first called me, she said, we've got so much going on and so much optimism and so much hope for this senior class. And it's really important that we have the best inspirational speaker in the country come in and talk to them. And he actually is not available, so we were wondering if you could come in and do it for him instead. So apparently you got second best today. You know, it's funny because when Marie sent me your class motto, the future lies before you like a field of driven snow. Be careful how you tread it, for every step will show. And when I read that, I was amazed by the level of wisdom that was contained within those words, perhaps even more wisdom than you imagine. In fact, I believe it will come with years from now that you will understand the prescience and the judgment and the insight that you showed by choosing that as your motto, because you're going to find throughout life just how true those words really are. When I read it, I was moved by how similar it is to my life's philosophy. One of my books is called The Power of Consistency, and in that book, I write about that success in life is not a reflection of the big moments in your life. Your success in life is a reflection of what I call seemingly inconsequential moments, little tiny things in your life that accumulate over time. And so in my vernacular, I call them seemingly inconsequential events. In your vernacular, you call them single steps in the snow. But they're the same thing, exactly the same thing. And what you're going to find throughout the course of your life is that the quality and the character of your lives, as you move on from this momentous occasion, your life will be a reflection of the accumulation of many of those steps. There'll be no single step that you take that will define your life. Your life, the quality of your life, the character of your life, the success of your life will be a reflection of millions of tiny steps in the snow. And along your journey, as you take those steps, those individual steps, you will inevitably face difficulties. The reality is every man and every woman in this room are going to face challenges in our lives. And in fact, we're going to face the exact same challenges. Everybody in here is going to have, at some point in your life, you're going to face a money problem, a relationship problem, and a health problem. It's going to happen to everybody. Nobody gets out alive. At some point in your life, maybe you're going to struggle to have a job, so you're going to have a money problem. Maybe you have an argument with someone you love or a neighbor, so you're going to have a relationship problem. And at some point, of course, we're all going to have the ultimate health problem when we leave this plane. So success in life is not so much about whether or not you face challenges, because you're going to face challenges. It's inevitable. The question is, what will you do when you face the challenge? Because the real quality, the real character of your life will be a reflection of the steps that you take in the snow when you face the obstacle. Whether you step this direction or this direction or this direction, the nature of that decision, the quality of that step will determine the quality of your life, not the initial problem. You see, the bad news is that everybody in life has problems. The wonderful news is that your life is not a reflection of your problems. Your life is a reflection of what you do about your problems. In other words, what decisions do you make about your problems? What step in the snow do you make when you come across a problem? And the better quality decision, the better quality choice that you make guarantees better results. So as you face the inevitable challenges of life, work problems, family problems, health problems, remember those problems will not define you. The steps you take in the snow will define you. How do you respond to that challenge? You know, I learned this lesson the hard way. 30 years ago, when I was 23 years old, I was living here in Denver, Colorado, and I had a problem. I had a money problem. And the reason I had a money problem is because I was a 9th grade high school dropout. I had been bouncing around on the streets for many, many years, no education, no skills, no trade. And at 23 years old, my life looked pretty much like you would expect it to look. I was your garden variety loser. No education, no skills, no trade. And so by the time I was 23, I found myself in a pretty big money problem, and I had to figure out what to do. Now, I could make a good decision and perhaps have a good outcome, but I chose a very destructive decision and I got a very destructive outcome. You see, in 1987, when I had a money problem, I couldn't afford to pay my rent, I decided to use a gun to take rent money from somebody else. Shortly thereafter, I was sentenced to the State Department of Corrections for 10 years. For one night, one bad decision. Now, when I got down to the penitentiary as a young man at 23 years old, I heard a lot of people blaming a lot of different things for being there. They were there because this person made them do that, or that person made them do this. And I began to buy into that initially, that I was in prison because I was uneducated, because I was poor, because I was unskilled, because I didn't have a chance in life. And one day it occurred to me that I wasn't in prison because of my problems, my lack of education. I was in prison because of the steps I took to solve the problem. You see, I could have worked harder to find a job, maybe get 2 or 3 jobs, maybe find a less expensive place to live. I could have taken different steps in the snow. So I was not in this horrible situation because of what came at me with the problem. I was in the horrible situation because I took the wrong step in the snow. And my life, just like your life, will be an accumulation of those individual steps. Lao Tzu once said, you know, how do you start a 1,000-mile journey? A single step. And that's what you guys are talking about. That's why I'm so impressed by the wisdom and the maturity in that motto. And I think as your life unfolds, you'll realize just how smart you really are. Even smarter than you think you are today. After a few years in the penitentiary, on June 10th of 1996, one of the prison guards walked in my room and told me that my father had died, unexpectedly at 59 years old. And I remember thinking when my father died that he went to his grave knowing me as a thief and a crook and a dirtbag, all because of the decisions, the seemingly inconsequential decisions I had made in my life. And when my father went to his grave and I realized he died knowing me as a thief and a crook and a thug, I decided I was going to change the course of my life. I was going to change the course of my destiny. I was going to take responsibility for each and every step in the snow. I began to study and read and change the course of my destiny. And very soon I learned a very simple lesson as embodied in the quote of Ralph Waldo Emerson. We become what we think about all day long. And I remember reading that and not understanding the connection between my thoughts and what's going on in my life. So I started really thinking about that quote. What did it really mean? And I realized that my thoughts were predominantly thoughts about violence and crime and drugs and running the streets. And what had I produced in my life? It was a perfect reflection of the chaos in my brain. So I decided that I was going to change what's in my mind. And I wrote out for me what a perfect life would look like. I wrote out that I was an awesome father to my son. By that time I had a small son. I wrote out that I was wealthy and successful beyond my wildest dreams, that I was a successful author, an entrepreneur. I wrote out this amazing life. And I began to review that every single day, and I began to replace what was in my mind, my thoughts, with this wonderful life. You see, here's the thing. We go through life every day thinking. You're thinking about your friends, you're thinking about your family, you're thinking about your job, you're thinking about your bills, you're thinking about everything. But how often do we take the time to slow down, take a few minutes and think about what we're going to think about before we think about it? You see, you have to know what that thought's going to be, because that thought is going to drive the decision, and that decision is yet another step in the snow. So over the course of many years, I began to review that list. I had it hanging on the wall in my cell with toothpaste. And every day I would look at it. Every day I would review it. Every day I would imagine what it would be like to be that person. Every day I moved one step closer to changing my thoughts. Because I came to believe that if I could change my thoughts, if I could think in a more positive and a more constructive way, that I could live in a more constructive way. Because when you change your thoughts, you change your emotions. When you change your emotions, you change your actions. When you change your actions, you change your results. But it all starts with the thought. It all starts with the single step in the snow. I did this for many, many years, and in 2002, just before I was released from prison for the last time, life taught me a little lesson. I was about 1 year away from getting out of prison, and I had changed my mindset. I was convinced I was going to get out of prison and have a successful life. I was so excited to be out, just the chance to live a new life and to create a new life, a better life for me and for my son. And so as I'm in the cell house one day, one of the prison guards comes walking by, and just as he walks past me, he falls down. And at first I thought he just tripped. I didn't know what happened, but I turn around and he's having some kind of seizure. He's flopping like a fish out of water. And so I don't know exactly what to do, because the number one rule in prison was you don't help the cops. You don't help the police. You can get hurt. You can get killed for helping the police. So my initial split-second response is, it sucks to be you, but I'm not going to help you. But in that moment of indecision, I had to reach in my mind and make a choice. What step in the snow was I going to take? But instead of pulling out of my mind the thought that, hey, you're a cop, you're screwed, I pulled out something I had been putting in my mind every morning for 6 years. And that was, I'm a man of honor, character, and integrity. I had written that down on a sheet of paper 6 years earlier, determined to change the core belief about myself, understanding I could become something different if I thought something different. So instead of walking away and leaving this cop to fend for himself, I reached in my thoughts and I pulled out, I'm a man of character and honor. And I knelt down over him and began to help him. At first I was just trying to stabilize him because he was having this violent reaction. And just as I got my hands around his hands, all of a sudden, like a light went out. I don't know if he had a stroke or an aneurysm, but he was just dead as a doornail. So I went into a full state of panic. I'm like, I gotta help this guy. I've gotta do something to help this man. If I'm truly gonna be a changed person, if I'm truly gonna be a man of character and honor, I have to help this man. So I realized I need to do CPR. Problem was, I didn't know anything about CPR. Only thing I knew about CPR was what I'd seen on Baywatch in slow motion. I didn't know what to do. So I asked myself the obvious question: what would Pamela Anderson do? Right? So what I remembered about Pamela Anderson in her red swimsuit on the beach in slow motion, they would push on the chest when they were doing CPR, right? So I started pushing on dude's chest. Push, 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 nothing happens. Push, 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 nothing happens. Dude is dead as a doornail. And then finally it hits me, the only way I'm gonna get oxygen into this man's bloodstream is I gotta put this mouth on that mouth, right? But I knew I was his only chance, and I was determined to be a man of character, to be a different person, to take a different step in the snow. I could have stepped away, but I took the right step in the snow to help this man. So I put my mouth on his mouth. I could taste the Dr. Pepper he'd been drinking when he fell down. But you know what was bad? Really bad, like way worse than Dr. Pepper? The whiskers. Oh my God. I'll be honest with you, I don't mind Dr. Pepper. It ain't half bad, even the second time around. But when I put my lips on that man's whiskers, I thought I was gonna have a stroke right there with him, but I knew I was his only chance. So I put my mouth, I nuzzled up right there with him. I put my mouth on his mouth. Didn't know if he was gonna take my name or not, but I was married to him in that moment. And I breathed, and I pushed on his chest, and I breathed again. Nothing happened. This went on for about 3 minutes. Man was dead as a doornail. I'm in a full state of panic. Finally, after about 3 minutes, I hear some more prison guards coming. Somebody had run to get some help and get some more prison guards. And so next thing I know, prison guards are bum rushing the unit. They're locking the whole cell house down, and they're running around and screaming. One of the guards comes around and kneels down next to me, and he knew how to do CPR because law enforcement had been trained in the CPR stuff. And so he kneels down next to me. Now, he didn't want to put his mouth on a dude's mouth because he figured I already had the Dr. Pepper, so he would do this part, and I could do, that part. But he told me how to do it because I didn't know how to do it. He said, you got to pinch the guy's nose and tilt the head back. So I pinched his nose, I tilt the head back, and then I breathed, and guess what? Now oxygen was getting down to his lungs. And so I would breathe, and he would do this, and I would breathe, and he would do this. After a couple of minutes, we get a rhythm going. After another minute or so, color starts coming back to this man's face. And it occurs to me that we might just keep this man alive if we can keep this process going. Just about that time, just as fast as he fell out and the light switch went off, it came back on. He came back alive, and he came back alive in the exact moment that my mouth was on his mouth, right? So this man wakes up with his eyes open as big as silver dollars. He just sees me on top, and he's coming up swinging. He has no idea what happened. The other police step in, they kind of get him to calm down and say, hey, we're just trying to help you here. They pick him up like a sack of potatoes, they run him out and rush him off to the hospital. Makes 100% full recovery. Comes back to work about 2 weeks later. And when he came back to work about 2 weeks later, it was not like a Hallmark moment. He was after a prison guard, I was a convict. So he came back to work, and so for the first couple of weeks, we just kind of avoided each other. We weren't looking for some happy reunion, Finally, after about 2 weeks, he was working my cell house. And so at 11 o'clock count that night, I knew that he was going to be coming by my cell. And sure enough, at 11 o'clock, I hear the keys dangling. He opens the cell door, And he looks in and he says, Mr. Long, I want to thank you for what you did. I'm like, hey, we're good. Just keep on moving, right? Because I didn't want to have any conversation with the cop. He steps in my cell. He goes, no, you don't understand. I've got a 9-month-old baby that has a father because you did what you did. You crossed that invisible line. And so we had a brief conversation. It was a wonderful moment. He went on about his way. Another 2 weeks went by. I get a letter from the prison warden. The prison warden wrote me a letter congratulating me and thanking me for saving this man's life. But the interesting thing about it, at the end of the letter, he said, your actions not only prove that you are a man with humanity, you've also proven yourself to be a man of character. Now, character was the exact same word I had written on a sheet of paper 6 years earlier and stuck on my cell wall. I'm a man of honor, character, and integrity. And now here a prison warden is telling me I had become a man of character. My friends, this is why your thoughts matter. Whatever you think, you are right. If you believe that you will walk out of here today and you are going to build the life of prosperity and wealth that you want, you are right. But if you walk out of this room and you think, I'm not going to make it, I don't know what I'm going to do, I'm not sure I can do this, then you will also prove yourself right. You have to believe what's possible. You have to dream as big as you can dream. And when you get finished dreaming big, you go even bigger if you want. And by the way, don't let people tell you you can't do things while you're busy doing it, because you'll be doing something and they'll be telling you you can't do it. They are wrong. You are bright, you are capable, you are awesome, and you have to capitalize on that talent. You have to be aware of every step in the snow you make. You have to make sure every step you take is consistent with what you want for your big picture. So you got to write that big picture down. Here's what I want from my life and my family and my job. I want you to write it down. I want you to take a few minutes every day and look at it. Just read it for a few minutes. This provides you with the opportunity to think about what you're going to think about before you go out there and think about it. And because you think about your fundamental decisions and ensuring that they're consistent with what you really want, guess what? You're going to make better decisions. You're going to take smarter steps in the snow. And when you take smarter steps in the snow, you are guaranteed better results. So think about what you think about. Henry David Thoreau said, advance confidently in the direction of your dreams. Endeavor to live the life that you have imagined, and you will meet with success unexpected in common hours. And I think that's more than just a bunch of fancy words with overuse of prepositions. I think it's a promise. Advance confidently in the direction of your dreams. Endeavor to live the life that you have imagined, and you will meet with success unexpected in common hours. Thank you all so much. Congratulations. Enjoy your day. Celebrate the moment. Thank you all very much.